Node.js is used mainly for backend JavaScript in web applications, but it can also be used for standalone non-web-based programs as well. A main or a large feature of Node.js that I think is really important is that you can import dependencies or packages created by other users and put them into your Node.js project. We'll talk about packages later, but first we're going to go over installation. So there's I guess two different routes you can choose to go. You can either if you want to work on your own code editor that you have installed, like VS Code, you want to download Node.js from like the website, or if you're lazy, you can use an online IDE such as Replit, which already has all your Node stuff set up. So because setting up a Node project on your PC is a little bit less straightforward, we're going to be going over how to do that. So the first step you need to do is you need to create your new project, which means you just set up a folder in your file explorer and then open VS Code or whatever software you're using to program. And you want to open the terminal or open the shell. And in VS Code, you do that with Control and tilde. And as you can see, it should look something like this, where there's some sort of command line where you can input commands. The next step is once you have Node.js installed on your computer from the website, of course, you can type in npm init, and that'll set up all the Node.js framework, I guess, for your project. So as you can see in this image, it also asks you a couple different prompts, like what you want for your package name, what version, description, and I think most importantly, the entry point. We're going to talk about the entry point in a little bit. And after you finish or skip through all of those prompts, it's going to create this file called package.json. And that's going to kind of store the metadata behind your project. So again, it's going to be like your name, description, like entry point, keywords, author, license, all of that good stuff. So now that you have your project set up, now you want to start creating a file. So it doesn't really, okay, well, it does matter what you name it, as you want to have it match your entry point, which is defaulted to index.js. So here in these pictures, I created a file called index.js, and I put some testing code, I guess. It's just the hello world program. So when you run it, it should print out hello world. So the entry point is the terminology for your main file. So like the main, it's whatever runs when you want to run the program. And this will come up, actually, I think it's the next step. Yeah, so in order to run your Node.js program, there's a couple different commands that you can do. So in the PowerShell, which is this thing here at the bottom, the terminal or shell, it's named different things in different IDEs, but that's aside from the point. So in the shell, you can type node and whatever file you want to run. So in this case, if we want to run index.js, we would do node space index.js, and that'll run all the code in here. So all right, so that's what you run if you want to run a specific file. If you just want to run the Node project from its entry point, which is defined earlier, which we defined earlier, it will run just that entry point file. So it's a little bit faster to type, and yeah, that's basically the only difference. You could also alternatively use a Node Package Manager script or NPM script. And you need to create these scripts within the package JSON file. So as you can see here in the red underline, there are two scripts. There's a test one, which returns just an error message. And the important one is start, which executes the command that we were looking at on the last slide, which is just node index.js. So what happens now is you can type npm start, and with that, it'll execute this node index.js and subsequently run the program, which is still hello world. There isn't really much of a difference between using npm start and creating a tiny script or just running node index.js or node dot straight into the terminal. Generally, the benefit to using scripts is that you can use multiple kind of command prompts at once. But yeah, that is npm scripts. All right, so npm is a term I've been using for the last couple of slides. It stands for Node Package Manager. And what it does is it kind of handles all of the different dependencies that you want to use. And as I was talking about at the very beginning, the dependencies are kind of packages and files that you essentially borrow from other people. And some examples of this is like MongoDB, Lodash, Express, Fetch, and Discord.js. Those are just a couple of random ones. And they have a wide range of utility and usage. For example, MongoDB links up to the Mongo database, which is a very popular database option for a lot of professional work. Lodash is especially useful for lots of calculations as well as programming utilities, such as like deep cloning, if you guys know what that is. There's also a lot of array operations as well. So it's kind of like a quality of life sort of thing. It kind of just like makes a lot of utility functions and stuff of the like. Express is extremely important because it allows your Node.js to serve as a backend for websites. Because Express kind of it allows you to connect to the front end with GET requests and POST requests. Fetch is good because it allows you to use application programming interfaces or APIs with other websites or other servers, and allows you to exchange information through that means. And Discord.js I just included for fun because it's one of the ways you can actually create your own Discord bot is through a Node.js project using the Discord.js package. Those are just a few examples. As you can see here, there are actually over 1 million different packages that are available through Node Package Manager. So the possibilities are pretty much endless. But yeah. And if you want to ever use any of these 1.3 million packages in your own project, all you have to do is run this command right here, npm install, and then whatever package you want to use. For example, here I'm installing the Lodash package, which, as I mentioned earlier, has lots of utilities and stuff. And it'll show like a loading bar, but that'll disappear, and it'll give you a couple warnings, but ultimately we'll say added one package. And after this, you should be free to use your the newly installed package within your program. So, all right. So one of the ways to use your package, or not your package, but use the package within your program is through a require statement. And here, what you can do is just assign a variable or constant to this require statement. So require and the package name. So here we're getting Lodash. And then if you want to use any of Lodash's functions or your package's functions, you can use the dot operator on this constant or variable. So Lodash has this one function called chunk, and what it does is it'll split an array into a couple of subarrays. So I do, and because it's assigned to the variable L, you do L.chunk in order to call that function. And then you then you can just pass parameters normally, and this is the return statement that comes out of that. An interesting thing that you can also do with the require statements is you can require other files that you've written yourself. So in this demo, I've actually also, in addition to index.js, I've also created a mystery.js file. And in that, we have this tiny thing here where you have var num equals 3, and then we export that with module.exports, and we assign that to num. And in the index file, which is the file that we actually run, we require our mystery file with the file pathing of // and the file name. And what that basically does is it looks inside the current directory that index.js is in. So it's just looking for other files on the same level as it, called mystery.js. And once it gets that, it gets all the data from module.exports of mystery.js, and it kind of imports it into the variable m. And if we want to recall that variable num from up here, we just do m.num. All right. I guess I should probably talk slower next time, but I have a example project. So this is something that I've made at a hackathon a couple months back, and it's pretty simple. What it does is you basically upload an image or press try sample image, and it'll generate that image on a Desmos calculator. So it does tend to take a little bit of time. Okay, well, while we're waiting for it to, all right, yeah, so here it is. And it is rem for read 0, if anyone's wondering. But I chose this project in particular because of its wide use of its Node.js packages. So the way that it's structured is that it has a backend, which consists of index.js and this image processing folder, and it has a front end that might consist of this public folder with assets and all the HTML stuff. So with Node.js, we want to be focusing on the backend right here. So let's take a look at all the requires that we actually use. So in convolution.js, we don't actually have any requires require statements, because all this is doing is essentially kind of the mathematics and utility functions that I have for the conversion from picture to Desmos graph. And none of that necessarily needed any outside help, or outside calculations. So that's why there's no require statements. But in vectorize, which is the actual process of converting that image into its graphic components or graph components, we actually need to use all these utilities that we defined within this convolutions.js file. So we use the require statement with the pathing that we talked about earlier with the // and then the file name. So all of the functions that we defined in here or the one function that we define in here is going to be exported into the constant of C. And as we can see here, we actually do use this function with c.applySobel, which is the very function that got exported. Some other things that we needed to import were potrace, BMP, and FS. So FS is probably the most common one of these. So what it basically does is it allows you to access your file system. So a lot of its utilities, let's do Control F, FS. Oh, yeah, actually, it appears I actually don't end up using it. So I think it's probably just a testing thing that I was doing. But I'm pretty sure what it was doing is it essentially took in your input and it wanted to save it to an external file so it could persist even after the program ends. But essentially, the use of FS is manipulating files like this testr.txt, like files, if it ever loads, yeah. You can store data this way. You can also retrieve data this way through the file systems module. And potrace and BMP were both installed via the shell where we do npm install potrace or npm install bmp-js. And what both of these do is they kind of help convert the image into like a usable format. And then finally, we have our index.js, which is our entry point and kind of our main file, right? So here is where you actually connect to the front end web page and do all of that good stuff. So of course, we're loading in our image processing code from down here into this constant, as well as loading FS. But the interesting part about this is Express, I think. So Express is the NPM package that allows you to send requests to your front end. And specifically, this line right here is what connects it's what allows the web page to kind of display everything in this public folder. And yeah, honestly, I think that's most of like the meat, or at least like most of the bare bones of the Node.js stuff. You essentially can connect to other packages and run it from your own computer or from Replit. Oh, and speaking of Replit, I guess it shouldn't take too long, but I can show how to create a Node.js project on here. It's a lot easier. All you have to do is click this as your language. You come up with a name and you click create, and that's basically it. It does all of this. I close VS Code, but it essentially does all of these steps for you with like the installation and setting up your package.json stuff, as well as your package lock, which has all of your packages that you install. So like if I wanted to install Lodash here, it would appear somewhere in here, probably at the bottom. Or in the middle appear, or in the middle, I guess. But yeah. All right. Since we still have a bit of time, I guess I can kind of write from scratch something simple with the Lodash stuff, or with Node.js stuff. So whenever you're using a package, it's pretty important to kind of research what it does. And up here, I actually was doing this in order to create the presentation. You always want to look at the documentation before you use any particular package so you know exactly what it's doing and what it needs and what it outputs. So let's find like a random function we want to demonstrate, I guess. From pairs. Oh wait. Actually, I don't know. Which one looks like less like not too complicated? All right, head gets the first element of an array. All right, that sounds pretty easy. So what I want to do is const this or whatever lod equals require Lodash, and because we've imported it from here, it allows us to require. And then all right, we're gonna get an array. So R equals, I don't know, 1, 2, 3. And lod dot head, I think, of R. And all right, well, hopefully that isn't anything bad, but let's just press run, which runs your entry point file. And here, it's kind of hard to see, but it does return the head of the array, which is just the first element, which is 1. So yeah, that's just like a quick demonstration of a Node.js program. And honestly, I think that's pretty much it for the basics. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Okay. How can we set up an Express project? So there's like tons of tutorials online to do this. And Replit's actually pretty nice because in here it says, not sure what to do, run some examples. There's literally just an example right here on making an Express thing. And if you run it, it creates like its own window with the text from here. There's lots of different ways to learn it. I recommend like just hopping on YouTube and like finding some tutorials there. If you want to learn it more thoroughly, you should probably find like a mentor or someone. But at least for like hobbyists or like hackathons and stuff, using like a YouTube tutorial should be fine. But talking about like the GET requests and like post requests and like also all the REST API stuff is kind of a topic for another day. But yeah. All right, any other questions? All right. Oh, okay. One more question. What about JavaScript? Would we write separate JavaScript files for front end or is it integrated? All right. So the project, let me open the Desmos thing again. All right. So the front end and back end are kind of split in like two different areas, I guess. So all the back end stuff is just here. I didn't really organize it. I should have like a separate folder for it, but I didn't. And all the front end stuff is in here. So assets are just images. All the JS here is just web.js. As you can see, it uses the DOM in order to like manipulate stuff. And here we have a React JSX file. This is all front end. I don't really have another JS file, like just plain JS file to kind of showcase in this project, but everything inside this public folder operates from the web side. So your browser is going to be computing anything from here, as well as all the HTML stuff. Ajax. Honestly, I don't really know. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just kind of like I just let Node handle everything and for backend, and you can connect it using Express. Of course, there's also other ways to create a backend through other languages. Python has one. I think Java has one, and like I'm sure a lot of other languages also have one. But yeah, that's kind of is just like the Node.js approach, I guess.